So the talk today is called Unexpected Connections. Speaker's name Eaton. And it's going to be a really interesting talk. Hopefully you guys don't do this off the con, but it sounds very interesting, and he'll explain to you what he's talking about. Here you go, Eaton.
Thanks so much. All right, thank you all so much for attending. My name is Eaton Zveare, and my talk today is called Unexpected Connections, How a Vulnerability in Obscure Dealer Software Could Unlock Your Car from Anywhere, but in a way that actually kind of undersells what actually happened. In reality, what I really did was basically take over an entire automotive ecosystem composed of more than 1,000 dealers. And unlocking your car was really just the tip of the iceberg as to what I could do. This talk only goes into about 25% of what I could actually do, so there's only so much I could talk about, but there's a lot of fun content to come, so thank you again for coming. So a little bit about me. I got my start in the Xbox and Pokemon days with hacking Xboxes. I still do that to this day, and they basically taught me everything I know. I'm mostly self-taught just by hacking Xboxes, hacking video games, and it's really what's encouraged me to do more in my life. So my first big hack in the web space was with Jacuzzi and their smart tub app system. There was a vulnerability there that let me take over their worldwide smart tub network. And that makes for some amusing headlines that you can see there in the middle. So about a year later from that, I had an idea. What if I switched to the automotive industry? So I decided to pick on Toyota one time, and I found a vulnerability in their supplier network, and that made nationwide news. So it was pretty humbling to get my name out there like that. And just last year, I hacked McDonald's McDelivery. We can basically change the orders to order anything for a penny. And this was in India. that was a lot of fun to do.
Oh, you're that guy.
I am that guy. So I target automakers just for fun. They're big, old companies. There's a lot of infrastructure out there. The example I have here on the screenshots is Mercedes-Benz. They have thousands of subdomains out there, and each of those is just an exploit waiting to happen potentially. I usually just get a list from certificate transparency logs, go through them one by one, and try and find anything interesting. What I typically look for is Angular and React apps. That's basically all I look for nowadays, because when I find them, I consider it a Christmas gift, because there's always some kind of gift waiting to be discovered. And by gift, I mean security vulnerability. Like there might be an API key or admin endpoint that's insecure. And there's a lot of fun to be had through these JavaScript-heavy apps. And remember the fact that you can find admin functionality in these apps too. So now into the details. What did I do? So this is brand new, undisclosed. You're the first people to hear about it. This happened back in January, and I've been working on it with the manufacturer ever since. So basically, when you go into a dealership, they're on their computers. They're using this specialized software to order cars and all that. And that's basically what I hacked. But I just didn't hack a single dealership. I hacked basically all of them in the entire network, and it's more than 1,000 of them. And I did that by creating a method to create a national admin account in the back end, and it basically gave me complete root access to everything. Like it could access all your information, take over your car, get all the finance information. It's just a laundry list of things. So this system, it's used by all the dealers in the manufacturer's network. It's publicly accessible via the internet, and they use it every day for their daily operations. When you go to the sites, you can't actually register because it's invite only. So that was a bummer right away. And it's also extra secure because it uses two-factor authentication via email or text. And it's also, what stood out to me, it's an Angular front end. So now to the invite system. This is an actual screenshot from the dealer's website. So the way it's supposed to work is, when you're a new employee there, you are supposed to ask your admin, the owner of the dealership, to invite you to your corporate email. So when you get the invite, you click on it, and inside that link is your unique invite token. And when you load the website with the invite token as a query parameter, the website will fire off an API request to basically validate it. And if it's good, it'll show you a registration form where you can continue the registration. but if it's bad, it'll just tell you it is wrong. So it turns out the registration form is hidden in the HTML on the front end of the site. So I did a quick trick by just using Chrome DevTools to make it show up. And then from there, I could fill in the details, and I tried clicking submit. So when you submit the form, it submits the same invite token that was in the email. And I saw that before I clicked submit, and I thought, I don't have a valid token, so I had a bad feeling it wouldn't actually do anything. But turns out there's good news. The server doesn't check it. It could be blank. So whatever information you put there, the system would happily accept it, and you would have a brand new account. But that wasn't all good news. So I checked my email accounts. I got the email, so I got really excited. But then I tried the user ID and password they gave me, but it didn't work. There's apparently a secondary step where the dealership admin has to verify your registration. So good on them for making sure that this vulnerability wasn't actually the full way in. So this was really a bummer. I was kind of stuck for a few days on it. This page, there's just like this one login script. There wasn't anything else besides verifying the invite token and registration. And I was just stuck. The rest of the sites was protected with the login. If you went to it, you would just get redirected to the login screen. You really needed a valid session to get any further. So what I discovered is when you log in, there's a profile update checkbox, and when you check it, the login actually works, and it just redirects you to the profile update screen where you can presumably make any changes if you made a mistake, like your dealer admin tells you your name is wrong, go back and fix it before I verify you. So the key here was that it established a session. So I got a JSession ID cookie, and I discovered that if you went away from that profile update page to the main site again, the front end of the site would briefly load. It would just display a bunch of errors, and then it would lock you out. But that was really a big next step, because in the background, so this website took like a minute to load because there were so many scripts. And that really excited me, because when I opened Fiddler, which is a network interception tool, you could see all the scripts being downloaded. And there were just like hundreds of them. And what stood out was the admin scripts. That's always exciting to see. And these were previously unobtainable because unless you had the valid session, you could not get access to these scripts at all. So this was key in finding the admin scripts. And what stood out specifically was the user creation scripts. But to actually get further into the site, I had to make some patches to get rid of those previous error messages. So I used Chrome local overrides, which is really such an incredibly useful feature by Google that basically lets you override web content from web servers. So if you have like a JavaScript file you want to patch, you can just use this feature and it'll load an override from your hard drive. So I use this to modify and patch things like security checks. And now the first patch I had to do was to get rid of that annoying pop-up that said you had to log in using a valid dealer code. So the first patch was to just comment it out. Easy enough. The second one was a bit more complicated. So when I went to the admin user creation routes, it would redirect you to the home page and then display this access denied background. So what I had to do is basically go into the redirect function and just return an empty string, which means you're not supposed to be redirected anywhere else, and you can proceed to your destination. With those in place, the base admin user page would load, and it showed me some users. That really excited me, because that told me that there's definitely some kind of server-side vulnerability that's not checking you for proper user privileges. But while that's exciting, what was more exciting was the create button at the top right. This opened a brand new user registration form that was a lot better than the initial one on the front end of the site, and it had a lot of juicy access options. What stood out was the national option and the admin dealer administrator's access option at the bottom. So the bottom list you see there I can only show so much because that list is like a CVS receipt. It just went on and on and on. You would need a microscope to see all the options. So they really fine-tuned the access permissions. So while I initially selected the first option, afterwards, when I was in, I actually select all the options so I would have full access. But anyway, before I get into that, I fill in my information and click submit. And to my amazement, it actually went through. And the email inbox got the admin credentials, and I was able to log in from there. So this worked because the server side was insecure. It checked that you had a valid token, but it didn't check if you were an admin and you were allowed to call these APIs. So that is why you were able to create this admin account, even though you were a lowly, unauthorized dealer user. So with that admin account, the door is just wide open. You had access to everything, and I mean everything. So when you log in for the first time, you're supposed to choose a dealer to administer. And as an account with access to more than one dealership, you could choose what dealer to log in as. And there's 1,700 of them. A few hundred of those were test dealers like road shows, ports, and stuff. So the real number is a few hundred less than that, but it's still well over 1,000. So with this access, what could you do? Let's get into one of the fun topics. So when I live in Florida, I usually go to the Publix on the weekends to do a little grocery shopping and pick up a bowl of sushi. And so just to set the stage, I can't name the manufacturer, but it's really one of the top automakers in the US. And the way I like to put it, if you go to the grocery store and you look for a Lucid Motors car, you're probably not going to see one. But with this manufacturer, you're going to probably see dozens of them on the way to your store. So like I was picked up in an Uber by the manufacturer's cars multiple times. Little did the drivers know what could have happened to them. So anyway, I found a car at the Publix really easily, and every car has a VIN number stamped under the windshield, which you can just take a picture of, which is what I did. So in this dealer system, there's a lookup tool that lets you look up users by VIN number or first and last name. So for this test, I used the VIN number and I plugged it in, and just like that, I knew the person's name, where they lived, their phone number, email, and other information. You can look up what other cars they had and so forth. And they would never know this. They would never know this happens. You just silently took a picture of their windshield, and suddenly you know everything about them. Now getting into the juicy bits, hacking a car. How could I actually take that car over? So there's been a lot of interesting hacks over the years with key fobs, mobile apps, immobilizers, but no one ever really targets the actual dealers. And it turns out the unexpected connection is they have a lot of control over your car, which I'm about to demonstrate. So when you buy a car, new or used, they have this enrollment system to basically pair you to your brand new car so you can use the mobile app to control it. This lets you unlock the car, start the engine, located wherever it is in the United States. And I found that you can basically abuse this process to transfer ownership of cars to me. So to test this, it didn't take long to find a friend who had a vulnerable car, and I got his full permission to test it to see if I could create my own account and then transfer the car that's on his account to my own account, and then see if I could control it. So step one, I created my consumer account, and then I logged into the private internal dealer enrollment system. The first step is to just select my account and then click add vehicle. The next step is to basically to put the VIN number of the car that you want to own. So this screen is supposed to be the screen that only dealers see, and it says there to basically check that the person is who they say they are, that they own the car, and that everything is on the up and up. And this is basically done by pinky swear, because when you click continue, it assumes you've done all these tasks and doesn't bother you further. The next step, apparently they grill you on your driving habits. So if you're a frequent breaker, if you're a reckless driver, apparently they're supposed to ask you and you have to check the boxes. I don't know why you want to tell them that, but this is the reality. Next step was to just confirm the customer's account information, which is their address and so forth. And the ownership transfer was complete. Presumably, the car would be linked to my account. So I basically logged into my account using the manufacturer's mobile app, and lo and behold, the car was there. I own the car. So first thing I did was start the engine, unlock the doors, honk the horn, and my friends confirmed that it all worked perfectly. And I could do this for any car I found in the wild, not just my friends. And of course, the car was transferred back to the friends without issue. It was very easy. So, how many of you, when you buy a new car, you say no when the salesperson asks you if you want to set the mobile app up? Just a few of you? Well, that's good, because if you say no, you're actually making yourself a little more vulnerable. So I found this reassignment process, to be a little noisy, because when you perform the transfer, the previous owner gets an email that their subscription has been deactivated. But if you were never linked to the car in the first place, you would not know. So if I would do this on a car that's not linked to you, I would be considered the first owner. So you would have no idea that I just took over your car. I can go over to your house, since I know your address, and just take all your stuff out, lock it, and then you would have no idea what would have happened. It would be a silent takeover. So yeah, this process is a bit noisy. It's email. It's very, you get an email about it if you do the transfer, but ultimately you're powerless to stop it. Like the email asks you to call corporate if this was a mistake, but by that point it would be too late. And I think most dealer employees would have access to this tool. So if anyone gets phished over there, they can probably do this to anyone. I'm kind of surprised it's never happened before. And this affects all cars, model year 2012 and newer, for this one manufacturer though, so it's not an industry-wide issue. That's because this telematics module is basically installed in every car. So they want to make their money and know where you live. And even scarier, like let's say you know your friend has a specific model of car, but you don't know the VIN number. You could just log into the consumer update tool, plug in their first and last name, and you can find the VIN number that way. Like I did this internally with someone. They said they had an affected car, but they didn't give me the VIN number. So I looked them up by name. I found their VIN number. I looked up some information about it, and I sent them to this. Is this you, bro? And they confirmed that it was. So kind of scary. Now, getting into more of the dealer system, it's just there's a lot of functions, and I'm just going to go over a few of them. So this dealer system is controlled by SSO, which means when you have the national admin accounts, you can SSO into everything. You can also access the SSO settings directly. So you could just configure anything, add new systems and so forth. But the important thing that came in handy later was the list of system IDs. This is what the SSO settings are in detail. You could change various variables, view the password and configuration. Now, so there's the main there's the main primary brand of cars, and they also have a luxury sub-brand. So this system is basically the same, but it has a fresh coat of paint, it's on a different domain, and the same cookies do not work between systems. The invite token exploits on the initial login step did work, but once you're in and tried to create the national admin accounts, it came up with this obscure message, and it didn't work. So I guess when you're paying for the extra luxury, you're paying for a little more security while you're at it. But yeah, with this message, I really cannot find a way to create the same national admin account I did on the primary brand, so I needed to figure out something else to do about this. And the solution came with an internal user impersonation feature. There is apparently the corporate side of the company has access to a user impersonation tool that lets you select a dealer. And then once you select a dealer, it lists all the employees, their roles, and with the click of a button, you could log in as them. And that would bypass all the two-factor authentication. And presumably, this was silent. They would not know you had just logged in as them. And that would be a serious issue because you can probably go about this undetected by logging into someone else and get them in serious trouble. Like you could do the takeover of cars using someone else's accounts, and they would get all the flack for it and not me. So a lot of bad things could happen with this. Now back to getting into the sub-brands. So with this particular manufacturer, there are usually combined stores, like with the primary brand and the luxury sub-brand just right next to each other. So I thought, what if I found an employee that works for both? Would they have privileges on the other systems? So I decided to try and find one. And I did. So the process was to basically find the user. I just kind of guessed. I found the dealership, and I just kind of find a high privileged user in the user impersonation list, and I would basically impersonate that user. Now, using in the previous section where you saw the system IDs, it would also list some system IDs of the other sub-brand dealer system. So you could use the SSO login auth dispatcher URL. You can substitute the sub-brand system ID for the primary brand, and then you can log in as that dealer user, and you would get redirected to the sub-brand system. And with that SSO session in place, you were able to navigate within the sub-brand systems. So the access door was finally achieved. Even though it wasn't quite as broad as the national admin, if you found like a dealer principal user, you'd have considerable access to the dealer systems on the sub-brand. And you can do this for all the dealers. So while the creation national admin account did not work, there's still significant access available through this user impersonation pivot. And of course, all these cars, they had their own enrollment system. I could log in and take over their cars too. So that's just expanded the impact more and more. So at this point, I have significant access. I have national access to the primary brand's dealer network. I could impersonate any user, and I could access the sub-brand systems to a pretty significant extent. And with the national admin accounts, SSO access, let's just let you into everything. So let's see some highlights. So TSD dealer is basically a third-party loaner system. When you get your car serviced, you're supposed to give your information to your dealer, they plug it in here, and then you get assigned a loaner car so you can go home while they fix your car. So with the national admin accounts, you can SSO into it, and you get a list of all the thousands of dealerships. You can click into them, view the loaner agreements, and also view PII. But for some reason, it was redacted. So I thought there's some security here, and it's just waiting to be broken, so I dug into it a bit more. So on the previous slide, I was logged into the national admin accounts, so I thought maybe there's some security measure that makes it so only the admins of specific dealers could view their own dealer's PII. So with the user impersonation, I thought, what if I find an employee that has high privileges in the system and see if I could view the PII? And that is what I did. This is a screenshot of all the roles, and high is basically the highest role, and that lets you have access to basically all the dealership functions across this rental system. And my theory was correct. Once you were logged in as that specific dealer admin, you could, in this rental platform, view all the PII of all the customers who had rented cars. And that includes things like your license number, your driver's license number, your birthday, insurance policy numbers, email, phone, name, address, pretty much everything you need to commit identity theft. So it was pretty bad. And just to be clear, you do this for all the dealers, all thousands of them. This is a screenshot of the dashboards, which the high privileged dealer users would use to basically get an overview of how their rental network is performing. And when the dealers buy the system, they have an option to buy the telematics package, which basically means that I guess if you live in a sketchy area, you might want to keep an eye on your loaner fleets to make sure your customers aren't taking the cars out of a geofence zone. So a few dealers use this system, and I gained control of it, and I can see a real-time location of all the cars, and even have the ability to edit the geofence. So back to the actual dealer system. They had some employee sections. As a dealer admin, you can get an overview of who is in your system. And in the API response, I noticed you can view some of the social security numbers, at least the last 4. And you could also view the full social security number by using this tool. But there was a warning that said if you did that, your action would be logged. So I didn't try it, but there's no reason I couldn't do it. And of course, you could view that audit log as well, but I don't think you could have purged your entry. At least I didn't try it. So, when you go to dealers, they place your order for cars, or they find cars that you might like. They have an inventory control system, of course, and I had full national access to all of it. So all those thousands of dealers, I just select from the list, or even by state, and I can get an overview of all the cars being allocated, place orders, and so forth. So here's an example of what it looked like in the dealer system when you looked at the inventory. So this is what your salesperson would see when they're looking for cars or placing your orders. And as a regional admin, you'd have access to some special functions. But I didn't go too deep into this because some of the buttons are a bit scary, and I didn't want to actually set off some irreversible action, like actually ordering a car. But you can basically, presumably, allocate cars to dealers, perform dealer trades with each other, and this is presumably what the corporate overlords used to actually grant allocations to dealerships, in which for sale to customers. And there's also an option to view the cars currently in transit. So there's a system called Freight Verify, and there's like 400,000 cars that you could have tracked through the system. And this tells you where they're going, where they are right now, and you could also cancel the shipments or reroute them. There's a cancel button right there. And presumably you could change the address to maybe your own home, but that's not something I want to test. And of course, you had access to the finance portal. So when you buy a car and the dealers try and sell you on all the optional add-on packages, those contracts get generated in a PDF form and they get stored in the system. And of course, I had full access to all those. The scroll bar was so long, it was just endless. And when you clicked each of those links, you would get a contract. And this is someone's contract for a protection plan. You had their name, address, and various other bits of PII. And there's a lot of these. Automotive Solutions is another third-party provider that basically makes franchise management software. And this manufacturer contracts with them to measure the performance of their dealers and just keep an overall idea of their dealer network performance. And as the national admin, you basically had access to all of it. So you had a bird's eye view over the entire national financial balance sheet. If you get into the nitty-gritty of everything, you can see who's in the red, who's in the green. There's just many sections, but I picked this one to highlight for you. There are KPIs, which basically for those who aren't in sales, this is how they kind of measure your performance so they know how you're doing. You can get an overview nationally of how everyone's doing and also drill down deeper into specific dealers. And when your friends say, this dealer's bad, this dealer's good, go there instead. That's all hearsay, but this is hard data right here. They apparently know which dealers are underperforming. So there's a list of good dealers and a list of bad dealers. And apparently a lot of dealers around me aren't doing so well. But there's a lot of dealers who are way exceeding their targets. So it's good to see someone take their performance seriously. JD Power, I'm sure a lot of you have heard that name. So apparently they make software for website analytics. Apparently dealers use a standard website template and they plug this into it, and then you can basically see for every dealer site where their traffic's going, how much how many visitors they're getting. This is all stuff that web administrators love to see. And now the lead portal. This is probably what the salespeople use on a daily basis because this is what gets them all their money. So presumably this is plugged into their phones and email system. So when you query them about buying a car, your lead gets generated here. And as a national admin, I basically had access to the entire list of leads. So anything you plugged into that form, I was able to see right here. And it went back quite a long time. Now the surveys. You know that survey the salespeople always pester you about when you buy the car, like their life depends on it? That all gets plugged in here. And the same things for service too. When you get your car serviced, they'll ask you to fill out the survey, and this is where it all goes. So as a national admin, of course, I had access to all the surveys going back who knows how long. But if you look at the numbers there, there's basically almost 1 million of them. So if you want to see how your friend actually likes their car, you can just look at this list and see what they actually thought. And dealers, of course, get a bird's eye view look through the main dashboard where they can see at a glance how well their employees are performing and potentially take corrective actions later. This one's a bit scary. So they contract with a science company to make some kind of map, which funnels a lot of data sources to basically generate a map of where potential or prospective customers may live. But when I loaded it for the first time, I only got a small glimpse of it. So a separate hack was needed to actually see the national list. So when you go to the sites, you basically download some of the map data, and in the response, for some reason, the Boolean flag for the national view was false. So I had to use Fiddler to basically change that to true, and then when I let the request through, it would show me the entire map of more than 9 million people. And these estimates are approximate, but you could probably get a good idea of where people are based on this. And one of the last things I'll cover is access to their email and mailing platform. You know, I'm sure you all get a lot of advertisements in the mail and email about new car deals and all that. They use this to send it. And as a national admin, you can log in as any dealer to access their marketing platform. And you can create the email. So if you wanted to fish some people on their customer list, you can create an email with the bad links. And also, it's linked to the dealer's credit card and bank account, so you can charge them for it. So I spent about a week going through various systems. I mean, everything I just talked about is probably only like maybe a little less than half of everything I managed to get into. There's just so much that was left on the cutting room floor. It really just it was just such a wide blast radius. So I spent a week going through it all. Took a long time. And eventually when I determined I'd looked at enough, I reported it to the vendor through their vulnerability disclosure program. They responded a few days later, and then about a week later, they immediately fixed it. And from that point forward, we were just going back and forth, trying to coordinate how we would disclose this in the end, if I had any further recommendations for security, and they obviously made their own internal improvements. So presumably, if this happens again in the future, you can just SSO into everything and leak all the data. And today is the first time I'm talking about it with you all. So, what did you take away from this? So the dealers have a ton of your personal information. Like as you just saw, when you get a car serviced and you get a loader, you would think that your license is secure when you give it to them, but as you saw, it was possible to get it. They have your information tracked in various places like the surveys, the lead platforms. There's a lot of places your information could have been exposed. And this is all caused by basically two vulnerabilities, just two vulnerabilities that are probably one-line fixes when they actually knew about it and went in to fix it. And that's basically it. Unless you want to go out and rip out your 4G modules, you can't really protect yourself from this if it happens again. Thank you so much for attending. If you want to read more about this and other exploits to come, make sure to follow me on my blog and my LinkedIn. I have a lot more cool stuff planned in the coming months. Thank you so much. And I also have some stickers up here. I have a few stickers. Please come up and get some. Thank you.